In this video, we're going to talk about checking your work when solving an equation, and also situations when there are no solutions. So when you solve an equation like x cubed equals 4x, like we saw in the last video, it's good practice to check your work at the end by taking all the answers you get and plugging them back into the original equation to seeing if they work or not. It's really common when you're solving an equation to get extraneous solutions that don't actually work, even if you did all the algebra correctly. Actually, in later videos, we'll talk about all the situations where that could potentially happen. So, let's practice checking using that previous problem. So the x cubed equals 4x from the last video, we got these three answers. Let's check all of them. So the first value was x equals 0. Then we have x equals 2. And the last step, we get x equals -2. Let's plug those numbers into this equation and see if both sides end up equaling. If I plug 0 in, we'll get 0 cubed equals 4 times 0. Oh, and both sides just equal 0. I get 0 equals 0. Oh, that's true. So check mark. That works. If I plug 2 in, I'm going to get 2 cubed equals 4 times 2. And if I work this out, well, both sides are just 8. 8 equals 8, check mark. That also works. And if I plug -2 in, I'll get -2. Whoops, -2 getting cubed equals 4 times -2. So the left-hand side is -8, and so is the right-hand side. Okay, so check mark, that works as well. So all of these answers work. That helps me confirm that, yeah, they are actually all solutions to this equation. Okay, so, all right, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's do some examples where we have no solution. So for each of these problems, I can either do some algebra to figure that out, or in some of them I can tell right away without doing any sort of work. So what I want to have you do is for each one, I'm going to give you a quick 30-second pause. To try it and see if you can show that there's no solution. So pause in 3, 2, 1, pause it. Pause 30 seconds. See if you can do that for the first one. Okay, let's talk about it. So I can distribute this 2 on the right. And if I do that, I'll get 2x plus 2 on the right. The left stays as it is, 2x plus 1. And then I could subtract the 2x on both sides, and that gives me 1 equals 2. Wait, but 1 doesn't equal 2. Like, that's not true. So that's impossible. So if you are trying to solve an equation and you end up with something that's just not true like this, it means that there's no solution to the equation. As long as we did the algebra right up until that point, this means there's no solution. Okay, part B, same thing. Pause it for a quick 30 seconds in 3, 2, 1. See if you can show that there's no solution. All right, so hopefully you did that. So this one has no solution without doing any sort of work. I can tell because when you do the absolute value of a number, it's going to end up being non-negative. I can't get a negative number out of an absolute value. So no solution, since I could write that as the absolute value of x is going to end up being non-negative. No matter what gets plugged in, it'll end up outputting a non-negative. It'll always end up being greater than or equal to 0. Okay. Part C, same thing. Pause it in 3, 2, 1. Pause it for 30 seconds to try this. And I'll be able to tell in one step without doing any sort of algebra. So, okay, this has no solution. And the reason is really similar to part B. When you have a square root of something, like if I do the square root of 16, that's just 4. It's not plus or minus 4. It's just 4. The number you get out of a square root has to be non-negative. That's something we've seen before. So there's no way I can get -1 out of the square root. So no solution, since a square root is going to be non-negative. Or I'll say a square root has a non-negative output. Has a non-negative output, just to make sure, to make clear, we're talking about the problem being we can't get a negative number out of a square root. It's also true you can't plug a negative number in, but that's not the problem here. The problem is it's saying we get -1 out, and that's impossible. All right, part D, same deal. Pause it, in 30 seconds. In 3, 2, 1, pause it and try it. Okay, let's talk about it. So this, I move the 1 over to get x squared equals -1. Oh, and then right away, when I square something, that cannot end up being negative. Like even if this is a negative number, once I squared it, it would end up being non-negative. So this is no solution. No solution since x squared is non-negative. So very similar reasoning. There's another way we could have gotten this, which is we could have square rooted both sides. I would have gotten x on the left. I would have gotten plus or minus, because I square rooted both sides, a root of -1. But we've seen that we can't do a square root of a negative number. Okay, so this is undefined. So this is a good time for me to talk about what's the difference between writing no solution versus undefined. So we say no solution for equations that have no real answer that works. So an equation is something with an equal sign, like x squared equals -5. There's nothing that works because x squared cannot end up being negative. On the other hand, I say undefined for what are called expressions. Expressions are things that we're just trying to simplify. They don't have an equal sign in them like this, like 4 over 0. That's undefined. I can't divide by 0. Or if I do the square root of a negative number, that's undefined, like we said here. So that's the difference between no solution and undefined. Okay, part E. So let's end with this. Pause it in 3, 2, 1 for 30 seconds to try this. Okay, so hopefully you did that. Let's bring it back and talk about this one. So I can multiply both sides by the t to get rid of this denominator. So now on the left, I can cancel these t's. It'll leave me with 1s in both of those spots. So I just get 1 on the left. 0 times t is 0. Oh, and 1 does not equal 0. That's impossible. So because I get this impossibility, it means there's no solution to this equation. And we got it.